The card was already on the counter when he decided she didn't belong there. Matte black, no visible number on the face. The kind of card that doesn't advertise itself because it doesn't need to. Adanna Osei-Boateng had set it down with the particular ease of someone who has done this 1,000 times. Not a performance, just a fact. And Juno Adeyemi Park had reached for it the way any front desk associate would. Routine, efficient, done. That was when Prescott Layne materialized. He came from the office doorway to Juno's left. Not hurrying, that would have suggested urgency. He moved the way men move when they've decided the room belongs to them. Measured, proprietary, the slight forward tilt of someone arriving to correct a mistake. He did not greet Adanna. He positioned himself between her and the terminal, picked up her card without asking, and turned it over once in his hand. Then he set it back on the counter. Not returned to her, just placed, like an object that had been examined and found wanting. "I'm going to have to stop you here," he said, and his voice was calibrated, not loud enough to be obvious, but pitched to carry to the couple checking in at the adjacent terminal, to the doorman near the entrance, to anyone in that lobby who happened to be paying attention. "Our system is showing irregularities on this card type. The Halverton has a particular clientele standard I'm obligated to protect." Juno's hands went still above her keyboard. She had been 3 keystrokes from completing the check-in. The reservation was clean. The card was clean. She had worked this desk for 2 years and she knew, the way you know things you're not supposed to say out loud, exactly what was happening. She did not say it. Not yet. Adanna did not raise her voice. She did not reach for a second card, did not offer an explanation, did not produce a phone number to call, or a name to drop, or any of the 10 things a person reaches for when they understand they are being made to justify their presence in a room. She set her leather portfolio on the counter, unhurried, deliberate, and Prescott glanced at it the way people glance at things they've already decided don't matter. He slid it slightly to the side. He did not look at the spine. Then she opened her phone. 4 words. She typed them without looking up. Her thumb hovered for 1 second. Not hesitation, something more like patience, and then she hit send. She set the phone face down on the counter beside her portfolio. Then she folded her hands and waited. Prescott read her stillness as surrender. He turned toward the far side of the lobby and raised 2 fingers. A small, clean gesture, the kind that assumes it will be obeyed. "Burl," he said, and then back to Adanna with something that almost sounded like courtesy. "We'll need you to step toward the exit while we sort this out." She did not step toward the exit. She did not step anywhere. She stood exactly where she had been standing since she set her card on that counter. The same posture, the same folded hands, the same quality of attention that had nothing defensive in it and nothing frightened. Prescott had been doing this job for 6 years. He had learned over those 6 years that people who are asked to leave generally leave. They get flustered or embarrassed or angry in ways that justify the asking. They do not simply stand there as though the lobby belongs to them. Something about her stillness should have registered as wrong. It didn't. Not yet. Then her phone lit up. 1 notification. A reply to the message she'd sent. 2 words on the screen. Adanna looked down at it. She read those 2 words. She exhaled, slowly, through her nose, the way a person exhales when the answer arrives exactly when they expected it to. And then she said, quietly, to no one in particular, 12 minutes. The security guard's hand had not quite reached her arm. Prescott, in his office doorway, was already composing the incident report in his head. A card irregularity, a guest who refused to cooperate, a situation handled with professionalism and care, standard language, language he'd used before. And Adanna Osei-Boateng stood where she had always been standing, carry-on beside her, portfolio on the counter with its embossed spine facing the room, phone glowing with 2 words she had not shared with anyone. And she watched the revolving door the way someone watches a door when they know exactly who is about to come through it. If you believe the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how many people try to bury it, then you're exactly who this story is for. The people who keep coming back here understand that dignity doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs time. Subscribe so you're here when the next chapter drops. Every single one of you who keeps returning, you're the reason this exists. 12 minutes. 2 words, and Adanna Osei-Boateng pocketed her phone without showing anyone the screen. Prescott Layne had not heard her say it. He was already moving back toward the desk with the measured confidence of a man who believed the situation was under control, who believed, in fact, that he had just performed a small act of institutional courage. He touched his glasses, he straightened his lapel pin, and then he asked, in the same carrying voice he had used before, whether Adanna could produce a government-issued identification document for verification purposes. She did not ask why. She did not point out that the couple at the adjacent terminal, the man in the fleece vest, the woman still wearing her sunglasses indoors, had produced nothing beyond a credit card and a confirmation number. She reached into the interior pocket of her portfolio, removed her passport, and set it on the counter with the same unhurried precision she'd used for the Centurion card. Prescott picked it up. He held it longer than necessary. He turned it toward the light from the lobby's tall windows. He studied the photo page, then the entry stamps, then the photo page again. The performance of a man looking for a discrepancy he had already decided must exist. Beside him, the couple in the fleece vest and the indoor sunglasses collected their key cards, thanked Juno, and moved toward the elevator bank without a second glance. Juno Adeyemi Park watched all of it. She had watched the card. She had watched the security guard. She had watched the couple at her terminal who were asked for nothing, given everything, and sent on their way in under 90 seconds. And now she watched Prescott hold a passport that had cleared entry at 17 countries. She could see the stamps from where she stood, as though it were a document that required his personal authentication. Something settled in her. She opened the incident documentation portal. Prescott had mandated it 18 months ago after a noise complaint was mishandled, had sat the entire front desk staff down for a 40-minute training session, had made them run practice logs, had told them that accurate time-stamped records were the hotel's first line of legal protection. He had built the system. He had taught her how to use it. He had never, in 18 months, imagined she would use it on him. She began to type. She had started the phone recording when Prescott first materialized from his office doorway. It was a reflex. The same reflex that made her log the noise complaint correctly when her manager had not. The same reflex that made her keep the succulent despite being told to remove it 4 separate times. Some things you document, some things you keep. She uploaded the footage to the portal with a timestamp and a case number, attached it to the log she was building, and returned her expression to careful neutrality before Prescott looked up. Prescott set the passport back on the counter. He told Adanna that unfortunately the reservation could not be honored at this time. He said it with the particular softness of someone who wants to appear reluctant. He mentioned the Comfort Suites 4 blocks east, said they were a perfectly comfortable property, that the Halverton simply had to maintain certain standards of verification, that he was sure she understood. He used the word standards twice in 4 sentences. Then he turned back toward his office. He paused at the doorframe. He told Juno, without looking at her directly, to remove the succulent from behind her terminal before the afternoon rush. Then he stepped inside and pulled the door mostly closed behind him. The lobby held its breath. Adanna did not move toward the exit. She stood with her carry-on beside her and her portfolio under her arm, and she looked at the framed rendering on the lobby wall, the one Prescott walked past every morning without reading, the one that had hung there since before he was hired, the one that named, in clean serif type, the entity that held the deed to every square foot of marble she was standing on. She looked at it for exactly as long as she needed to. Then she turned to Juno, who had not removed the succulent, who was still at her terminal, whose hands were still resting near her keyboard, and said quietly, in a voice that did not carry, "You should keep that succulent. It survives in low light." The lobby did not go back to normal after Prescott turned away. It simply performed normal. And there is a difference. The doorman near the revolving door straightened his posture almost imperceptibly. The concierge at the far terminal found something to reorganize on his desk. The 2 guests waiting on the velvet bench near the elevator bank had stopped looking at their phones. Nobody announced anything. Nobody needed to. Burl had been working the Halverton's lobby for 11 years. He had been summoned with a 2-finger gesture before, and he would probably be summoned that way again, and he had long since made peace with the distance between what he was asked to do and what he believed was right. But he had never in 11 years been asked to remove someone who stood the way this woman stood, like the floor belonged to her, not because she was claiming it, but because the question had never occurred to her. He leaned in slightly and asked in a voice low enough that only she could hear whether she'd like to sit down while things were sorted out. Adanna read his badge before she answered him. "Thank you, Burl," she said. "Not thank you the way people say it when they mean leave me alone. The way people say it when they mean it." She accepted the seat, a low velvet chair near the window, angled toward the revolving door, set her portfolio across her knees, and folded her hands on top of it. Her carry-on stood beside the chair like a patient companion. She did not reach for her phone. She did not look toward Prescott's office. She looked at the door. From his doorway, Prescott watched her sit down and felt the particular satisfaction of a man who believes he has been proven right. She had not made a scene. She had not demanded a manager. She had accepted a chair. He filed this away as confirmation. Of what, exactly, he could not have articulated, but it felt like confirmation, and turned back to his desk. He opened the incident report template on his screen. Guest presented card flagged for verification. Guest declined to provide secondary identification in a timely manner. Guest was offered alternative accommodations. He typed slowly, choosing each word with the care of someone who has written these before. He touched his glasses twice. He did not look at Juno's screen. If he had, he would have seen that she had not closed the documentation portal. He would have seen the timestamp running, still active, still logging, and the discrete video file she had uploaded 40 seconds after he turned away from the counter. He would have seen that the incident report he was composing in his office was not the only record being made of this afternoon. But Prescott Layne was a man who, when he believed a situation was resolved, stopped looking at it. Juno did not look up often. When she did, it was toward the chair by the window, and each time Adanna was exactly where she had been, hands folded, portfolio across her knees, watching the revolving door. Not anxious, not waiting to be rescued, waiting for something she had already set in motion. 7 minutes earlier and 4 blocks west, a phone had buzzed on the seat of a black car moving through the financial district. Stellan Voss had read the 4 words once. Then he had leaned forward and told his driver to run the light. "Lobby, your hotel, now." That was all. No explanation, no context, no second message. The contact was saved as AOB, no full name, no title, and Stellan had not needed either. In the 8 years he had known Adanna Osei-Boateng, she had sent him exactly 3 texts that looked like this one, and all 3 had required him to move immediately and ask questions later. He had learned across those 8 years that the questions always answered themselves once he arrived. He did not call ahead. He did not text back. He tucked his notebook under his arm, put his phone face down on the seat, and watched the city move past the window. Whatever was happening in that lobby, Adanna had decided it needed to happen fully before she ended it. She had sent the text, and then she had gone quiet, and that, more than anything, told him to hurry. Back in the lobby, Adanna checked her watch once, a single glance, the kind that does not betray impatience, only arithmetic. The doorman near the revolving door had straightened his jacket for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. The valet outside, visible through the glass, had moved from his post near the curb to a position closer to the entrance, alert in the particular way that people become alert when they sense that someone important is about to arrive and they are not sure they are ready. Adanna looked at the revolving door and did not look away. Prescott stepped out to check on the situation. He found her exactly where he had left her. Same chair, same posture, same folded hands. He had expected, had wanted, had needed to find the chair empty, or to find Burl walking her toward the exit, or to find some evidence that the afternoon was already behind him. Instead, stillness. And something about that stillness, the precise, deliberate quality of it, the way she was not looking at him, was not looking at her phone, was not performing patience but simply possessing it, registered somewhere beneath the level of language as wrong. Not wrong like a mistake, wrong like a door that opens from the outside when you are certain you locked it from within. Prescott opened his mouth to say something, to reassert the situation, to ask Burl for an update, to do anything that would make the stillness stop feeling like it meant something. But before the words arrived, before he could name the thing that was wrong, the revolving door turned. The revolving door turned, and Stellan Voss came through it the way he always moved through his own properties. without announcement, without ceremony, wearing a wrinkled linen blazer over a plain gray tee and carrying nothing but the worn leather notebook tucked under one arm. No briefcase, no entourage. Just a man who had built a portfolio of 43 boutique properties across 11 states and had never once learned to look the part. He did not stop at the front desk. He crossed the entire lobby, past the doorman who had already straightened his jacket, past the valet station, past the framed architectural rendering that read Voss Portfolio Group, established 2003, and walked directly to Adanna Osei-Boateng. He took her hand in both of his. Not a handshake, a held hand. The kind of greeting reserved for someone whose trust you have earned over years and whose time you understand has a price attached to it. "I came as fast as I could," he said. She said, "I know." Then he turned, and he took in the scene the way a man takes in the aftermath of something he is responsible for. The security guard still hovering near Adanna's unpacked carry-on. The passport sitting on the marble counter where Prescott had left it rather than returned it. The two guests near the window who had drifted closer without quite realizing it. His jaw tightened. He said nothing yet. He walked to the counter. Adanna's leather portfolio was still where Prescott had slid it aside. Off to the far edge of the marble, face down, dismissed as clutter. Stellan picked it up. He turned it over. He read the embossed spine. OB Capital Group. He held it for a moment longer than necessary. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not surprise exactly. More like a man doing arithmetic he already knew the answer to and wishing, very much, that the numbers came out differently. Because Stellan Voss knew exactly what OB Capital Group was. He had known for 4 years. Adanna's fund held equity stakes in 7 properties across his portfolio. Not passive stakes, not silent minority positions, but active equity, the kind that showed up on his quarterly operating reports and his lender covenants and his refinancing conversations with 3 different institutional banks. 34% of his operating liquidity spread across 7 buildings, all of it flowing through OB Capital Group. Prescott had not simply turned away a guest, he had publicly humiliated the woman who could dissolve the financing architecture of this hotel with a single call before close of business. Stellan set the portfolio down, carefully this time, and looked at Juno. "Pull the incident report," he said, "the one from the documentation portal." Juno did not hesitate. She had been waiting for someone with the authority to ask. She found the file, opened it, and read aloud in a clear, level voice the timestamps, the description, the language Prescott had used at the counter, calibrated for our clientele. Stellan went completely still. Those 4 words. He had heard them before, or a version of them, close enough that the recognition moved through him like cold water. 2 years ago, at the Voss property in Phoenix, a discrimination complaint had used nearly identical language from a manager's written policy memo. That settlement had cost him $340,000 and a licensing review that lasted 11 months. His attorneys had told him afterward that the specific phrase, "calibrated for our clientele," was the sentence that had made the case. It was the sentence that turned a complaint into a pattern. He had believed, afterward, that the lesson had traveled through the organization. He had been wrong. He was still standing there when the office door opened. Prescott Layne emerged in his charcoal double-breasted blazer, silver lapel pin precisely centered, shoes still mirror bright. He had composed himself during the wait, the practiced composure of a man who believed the situation remained his to manage. He saw Stellan, and something flickered across his face. Not fear yet, just recalibration. He began a sentence. "Mr. Voss, there was a card verification issue that I—" Stellan held up Adanna's black card. He had picked it up from the counter without Prescott noticing. He held it now between 2 fingers, not extended toward Prescott but simply visible, a fact in the air between them. "This woman," Stellan said, and his voice carried no performance, no theater, no elevation of register, "holds equity stakes in 7 of my properties, including this one." He paused just long enough for that to travel. "And you asked security to remove her from a lobby she partially owns." He set the card down on the counter, gently facing Adanna. Then he looked at Prescott Layne with the specific expression of a man who has stopped calculating options. "I need your badge and your keys," he said, "before you say another word." Prescott's mouth opened. It closed. It opened again. His hand went to his glasses, the wire-rimmed ones he touched whenever he was lying. But there was nothing to lie about anymore. No version of events to construct. no card terminal to blame, no clientele standard to invoke. The lobby had heard every word. The doorman, Burl the guard, who still looked genuinely uncomfortable but had not moved to help Prescott. The two guests near the window, who were no longer pretending not to listen. Juno behind her terminal, with her timestamps and her documentation and her small potted succulent that Prescott had told her repeatedly to remove. Every planted detail, every quiet moment, every word Adanna had not said, arriving now, all at once in the silence. Prescott's mouth opened and closed twice without sound. His hand went to his glasses, and the lobby, the doorman, Burl the guard, two guests who wandered in during the standoff, Juno, went completely silent as Stellan held out his open palm and waited. The badge came off first. Prescott's fingers found the magnetic clip at his lapel, the same lapel he had straightened with such satisfaction 20 minutes earlier, and he pressed the badge into Stellan's palm without a word. The keys followed, a small brass ring, 3 keys total. Nothing dramatic about the sound they made landing in someone else's hand. That was the thing about the end of authority. It rarely announced itself. It simply transferred. Stellan did not hand the badge to Burl. He did not hand it to the duty manager or call for HR. He walked directly to the front desk and set it in Juno's hand. And when he spoke, his voice was level, unhurried. The voice of a man who had made consequential decisions before and understood that the delivery mattered as much as the decision itself. "Acting manager," he said, "until I tell you otherwise." Juno looked down at the badge, then up at Stellan, and said nothing. Because there was nothing to say that the moment had not already said for her. Burl walked Prescott out. Not roughly, not with theater. Burl was not a theatrical man, but steadily. The way you walk someone through a door when the conversation is over. Prescott touched his glasses once, a reflex with nothing left to lie about, and then he was through the side exit and the lobby exhaled. Stellan was already on his phone, standing in the center of the marble floor, where Adanna had stood for the better part of 40 minutes. His call to the corporate office was brief, 3 sentences. The words documentation package and hospitality board and "I'll send it tonight." Then he hung up and crossed to the corner seating area where Adanna was waiting, her portfolio open across her knees. She turned the screen toward him without preamble. Juno's incident portal upload was thorough in the way that only someone who had been watching and waiting for a long time could manage. Timestamps, the passport held too long, the 2-finger security summons, the screenshot of the adjacent check-in where the couple received no verification request whatsoever. And the video, 43 seconds, slightly shaky, unmistakably clear. Stellan scrolled without speaking. Then he kept scrolling, past Juno's upload, further back into the portal's archive, and that was where the story changed shape. 2 prior complaints, logged with the same careful timestamps, the same discreet specificity. Both from guests of color. Both buried under a status Prescott had marked, reviewed, no action required. A designation that required a manager's authorization code, which meant Prescott had read them, classified them, and closed the door on them himself. The first was 14 months ago, the second 7. Stellan set the phone on the cushion between them. "This isn't a termination," he said. "It's a documentation package. 3 incidents, time-stamped, cross-referenced, one of them with video. The State Hospitality Board has a pattern of conduct threshold." He paused. "Juno's logs are the record that makes it stick. Without them, we have a bad afternoon. With them, we have a case." Adanna nodded once. She had known this, or something like it, from the moment she sat down and accepted Burl's offer of a seat. The stillness she had held for 40 minutes was not patience. It was evidence collection. Every minute Prescott spent performing dominance in his own lobby was another minute the portal's clock was running. She had simply given the clock time to do its work. Juno came across the lobby a few minutes later with a keycard envelope on a small tray. The Halverton's best suite, comped for the full weekend per Stellan's instruction. She set it on the table between them and thanked Adanna in a voice that was steady but not quite steady. Adanna took the envelope and then looked at Juno directly. "Stellan mentioned you specifically when he replied to my text," she said. "I described the associate who photographed the incident. Who kept her succulent despite being told not to." Juno was quiet for a moment. "You told him about me before he even walked in," she said. It was not a question. "I told him about you before I sat down," Adanna said. Juno stood there and understood what she was understanding. That you should keep that succulent. It survives in low light. Had never been small talk. It had been an introduction. Adanna had already told Stellan Voss about the young woman at the front desk who documented what she saw and held on to the one small thing that was hers. By the time Stellan walked through the revolving door, he already knew her name. The quiet comment in the middle of a humiliation had been, the whole time, someone opening a door. Adanna rode the elevator up alone. She did not look back as the doors closed, but if she had, she would have seen the lobby exactly as it was. Juno at the front desk, the succulent behind her terminal, Stellan in the corner still on his phone, the framed Voss portfolio rendering on the wall, Istanbul 2003, unchanged, exactly as it always was, meaning something entirely different now. That is how the truth tends to arrive, not in a single loud moment, but in the accumulation of small, documented ones. A photograph taken on a personal phone, a plant kept on a desk, a text sent to the right number at the right time, a woman who stood still and let the clock run. The people who underestimate composure always make the same mistake. They see stillness and call it weakness. They see patience and call it surrender. They do not understand that some people are not waiting because they have no options. They are waiting because they want the record to be complete. Drop a comment below. Have you ever watched someone stay quiet in a moment of injustice and only later understood exactly what they were doing? Tell us. And if this story found you at the right moment, send it to someone who needs to see it today. If you believe the truth always surfaces, that the record always catches up, then you already know why you're here. Subscribe, because this is the kind of story we tell every single time. Thanks for being here. The end screen has more. Pick whichever one calls to you.